A couple folks who were here who left, and a couple other folks show, so we should have a nice, tight group today. Well, in November, Austin's going to elect its first city council with single-member districts. The purpose of this forum is to allow candidates to state their views on important issues related to Austin energy and to assist residents of Districts 1 and 7 in gathering information about the candidates before the election. Valued at $3.8 billion, Austin Energy is the city's most valuable asset. In addition to providing power for the city, its residents, small businesses, large commercial customers, and industrial customers, Austin Energy revenue supports city operations such as parks, infrastructure, EMS, firefighters, and libraries. 37% of Austin's general revenue budget comes from Austin Energy. Decisions made about Austin Energy also impact climate change, air quality, water use, and affordability. For all these reasons, Austin Energy is a major responsibility for the City Council. That's why this group of nonprofit organizations has come together to host a series of forums across the city on Austin Energy. And those groups are Public Citizen, Sept Coalition, Sierra Club, Solar Austin, Texas Rose, Clean Water Action, Austin Climate Action Network, Texas Drought Project, First Unitarian Universalist Green Sanctuary Ministry, and the Wildflower Unitarian Universalist Church. So before we get rolling, let's go over the ground rules briefly. Candidates will each be given 1 minute for opening statements and 1 minute each for closing statements. Time allotted for responding to each question will be stated with the question. Carol, where is Carol? Carol right here in the blue will be our timekeeper, and she's going to show cards to indicate how much time you have remaining in your statement. Because of the large number of candidates here today and the number of questions, we ask that candidates respect the time limits and end their responses as soon as time is up. This is a forum, it's not a debate, so no time will be given for rebuttals. In order to allow for all the candidates an opportunity to be heard, we ask that you remain quiet until the end of the forum, please. After we conclude with our questions, there will be time to mingle with the candidates and ask any additional questions you may have. So, by random selection, Melissa Zone is going to start with the opening statements. Now guys, if you haven't learned yet, there's a phrase called spit into the microphone. That's how you get that one to work, so put it nice and close. So, Carol, are you ready?
How long is the opening statement?
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited about talking about issues that are important to me and to be able to share with you my experience in success in helping the environment and also providing for alternative energy. I'm a senior planner with transportation natural resources at Travis County, and I've been an urban regional planner and policy staff for about 20 years, working with various jurisdictions, and a lot of it has to do with stuff that is dear to us today and talking about. And I'm looking forward to hearing some of the questions, and be appreciative if you wanted to talk with me afterwards, because I think that this would be a great partnership, because you won't have to worry that the doors can always be open, because you're near and dear to our heart. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Jeff Boyd, and I'm from District 7 here in North Central Austin. This election, move to the 10-1 race, is a major change and challenge for the city. We look forward to the opportunity to serve and represent you as your council member in this. I've lived in North Austin for 21 years. My wife and I moved to town. I'm an attorney, and I've worked all my career working with community groups, local governments, state agencies, federal agencies, everyone together to move projects forward to improve our quality of life. I'm the only person in this race with experience in utility law and regulation, and certainly I'm particularly interested in this forum today because the management and governance of Austin Energy is one of the most important issues before the council that we will be looking at next year. So thank you for coming out.
Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Poole, and I'm running here today to talk to you about experience and how experience matters. Familiarity with the issues makes a difference. The battles that we've fought in Austin over the years, I moved here in 1980, so I've seen a lot of the fights, the ones that we've won and lost. Our Save Our Springs initiative, where I was one of the canvassers gathering signatures on that petition to save the springs. I've served on 4 city commissions over the years. Councilmember Beverly Griffith gave me my first assignment on the Arts Commission. I also served on the Telecommunications Commission and on the Water Wastewater Commission, where I stood up against the power structure of the city to build Water Treatment Plant 4. I publicly called for the not to build Water Treatment Plant 4, and we all now know what I knew then, that it was a big problematic infrastructure project and we would not need it because Austin can conserve water and we have shown that. Thank you.
I apologize for being late. I was waiting on a babysitter. My name is Jimmy Tabor, also running in District 7. I'm very glad to have an opportunity to be here today. I spent a significant portion of my time at the Texas legislature working on renewable energy issues, where I helped draft, lobby for, and eventually pass a bill that would allow for a property tax exemption for the upfront cost of solar for distributed solar in Austin. I'm a lifelong resident of this area. As I said, I worked at the Texas legislature and also for a number of years for Congressman Doggett. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and look forward to what I hope will be a great policy discussion on renewable energy. Thank you.
Hello everyone. My name is Pete Salazar. For a long time I worked with nonprofits. I worked with Caritas of Austin and Goodwill Central Texas. With Caritas of Austin, I was involved with a program called BSS, which is Best Single Source. And this was a program that Austin Energy had that assisted people that faced barriers. And so while I'm not fluent in litigation as far as the electrical companies, I did see the human cost. Because it was my job to help people find employment when they couldn't pay their electric bill. When they are at risk of losing their house because the regulations in the billing system was so archaic that it really put people's lives in danger, in jeopardy to live and survive. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running. And I look forward to the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. My name is Darrell Whittle. I currently work as a manager of a restaurant at the Domain. I've been in business management for 20 years. I'm a current board member and past president of the Greater Austin Restaurant Association. I'm a past advisory board member to the Austin Hotel and Lodging Association. And I sat for a year on the state board of the Texas Restaurant Association, where I chaired their committee for sustainability and social responsibility. And I've made my spurs with the Restaurant Association. When I worked downtown, I could walk to City Hall and got very involved in the Restaurant Recycling Initiative, which was actually an attempt to, back in about 07 or 08, to mandate restaurant recycling. We worked through this issue. It took 5 years to work this out to where we had an acceptable solution. So I kind of understand how difficult some of the challenges are when you start talking about some of this forward-looking thinking. Anyhow, I think I'm running out of time. I'm going to say thank you.
And now we turn to District 1. Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Valerie Menard, and I'm here running for District 1 for City Council. I was as inspired, I'm sure like many of us, to run because of single-member districts. The opportunity to have real representative government was very exciting for me. In District 1, particularly, we have been ignored. There are several districts like ours that have not had a voice at City Hall, and that's why I wanted to run. I am an environmentalist. I'm committed to reduce, reuse, recycle. I come to the environmental movement through environmental justice, which recognizes people also as being affected adversely by the environment, and in District 1 that is particularly relevant. So I look forward to your questions, and thank you all for coming.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Cargill, and I'm a small business owner here in Austin. You may have seen me on the news, on the local news here. I've been featured in Forbes magazine because my business is actually one of the first businesses. We are actually the first business in the state of Texas to have a solar powered sign on that business. I'm a small business owner here. I've also served 12 years in the United States Army. I've also was an owner of a transportation company. So I can relate to the transportation problems that we have here in Austin. And I also have a plan of what we can do to actually get the vehicles moving and also put revenue, build our tax base, and actually build money for our energy and actually increase the energy that we have here. So I have a couple plans of what we can do to get all that stuff done. And I hope to tell you that a little later on as I'm running out of time.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Bucknell, and I'm a candidate for City Council District 1. I'm a little bit under the weather, figuratively and literally today, with the allergies and the rain falling. But I'm a native Austinite. I've lived in District 1 for the last 16 years. And some of my earliest memories are down at the pool by Deep Eddy or Barton Springs, and looking at the water that runs through the city, or Lady Bird Lake, and thinking how it connects us all together. I know, like many of you here, I'm deeply concerned about our environment and our water and our future sustainability of the city. I've also worked in mental health for over 16 years, and I understand that the policies that we enact have real implications on everyday life for many people in the city of Austin. We have to make sure that we think about not just the consequences of the acts that we do, but the unintended consequences and the consequences of not taking action. I'm Andrew Bucknell. I'm a candidate for City Council District 1. I really thank you for the opportunity to be here today to share my ideas with you.
I'm glad you don't have a cold. Good afternoon. My name is Ora Houston, and I have lived in District 1 for most of my life. I am a public servant, have been a professional public servant for 27 years with the Department of Mental Health and Mental Retardation. I also served with Child Protective Services and Legal Aid and Defender Society. I served with Senator Barrientos for 3 legislative sessions and 2 special sessions, and so I know how business and government works, especially large, complex businesses in government. And so I'm looking forward to dismantling some of the silos that we've put up in our city, especially the environmental silo as it relates to District 1. So I look forward to our conversation today, and thank you so much.
My name is Norman Jacobson. I'm a scientist and environmentalist. I'm strongly in favor of solar energy because it is the most safest environment. I'm opposed to nuclear power because of the dangers at Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and Fukushima is really destroying the environment. And also to generate electricity, generate the refined uranium that uses tremendous amounts of fluorine that becomes radioactive and is being dumped into our environment through the fluoridated water. And once again, my name is Norman Jacobson. I'm with District 1. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know that my colleague here, Kaiba White, is going to be walking behind us and handing out questions. So every time that I relay a question to you verbally, she's going to be handing it out to you in print, give you a little time to think it through. And just as we just did, we'll be alternating one district will answer and then the other district will answer. So let's go ahead and start with Michael. And this is a 1-minute question, Michael, and then you're just going to pass it down to your left and we'll come back to Valerie. What is your position on City Council maintaining full responsibility for governance of Austin Energy, transferring authority to an independent board, or privatizing the utility?
Okay, I think Austin Energy should remain under the authority of the City Council, and not an independent board. So that way we can actually make some real changes in the city on how we can increase, the revenue of that department. And the way we can do that is, what I would do is actually there's a lot of property that's owned by the city of Austin and also by the state agencies that's located downtown. And prime real estate, you're talking real estate that's worth about $1 billion. And what I would actually do is sell that property, some of that property, and actually get some of those facilities to build on the outer skirts of Austin. And that way we can, instead of having those people go through downtown, actually move them to the outskirts and actually build those facilities with, so they're eco-friendly, and put solar power panels on those facilities so that way we can put money back into the grid and raise our tax base. My name is Michael Carter.
I believe we should keep the system with the authority under the city council. I think deregulation and moving to privatization would be extremely dangerous for the city of Austin, and I hope no one's going to suggest that. I think then the goal of the utility then becomes making money. And as we know that for-profits tend to not take into consideration the impacts of their rate structure on the citizens, they do it on the rate structure of what's going to help their investors. So I think it's really important that we maintain control. I really like the idea of getting citizens' input from any process that we have. And so I'd really encourage us to develop an advisory board to help us with the decisions that we make. I think not just in this area, but in other areas as well. I think it's really important that we have open, inclusive, and transparent government. So we need to, as much as possible, to make sure that the decisions that we're making are fully vetted with the public, and that you're aware and involved with the decisions and know the conversations that we have before we reach those decisions.
Or Houston, and it's my commitment that the board of directors elected by the people stay in that relationship with Austin Energy. It's important that, oh goodness, how do I say this? That people with the least resources are equally considered when we are talking about rates and rate changes, because sometimes people say, well, it's only a couple of dollars, but the people on fixed income and those with low resources, that's a lot of money in a rate kind of schedule. So one of the things I think that we need to look at is the business model, so that when people conserve, they're not penalized. And that's what it feels like to a lot of people in District 1. We're doing our best to conserve, and yet the rates continue to go up. So why conserve if you're going to be penalized anyway? So we need to flip that so it feels like a positive and not a negative.
My position is to maintain full responsibility with the city council. However, the public should be allowed to have more say over the city council. One of the things I've noticed, back in 2011 when I ran for the city council before, is that I looked at the emails, and Chris Riley received an email from a wealthy doctor who wanted to have free electricity for electric cars, and now we have it. And I don't think that was right. And problem with privatizing that doesn't always work. It sounds great, and sometimes it is great, but I think we should stay with the present system of the city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie Nark, District 1. I'm opposed to any privatization, outsourcing. I think that there's nothing as basic as our utility bill. It's a quality of life issue, and we need to maintain control of that. And with the private entity, I don't know that we would have accountability, and that is so essential in open government. And for that reason, and I think that the best way to maintain control of our bill rates is to keep it under city council. There's been a lot of good work, a lot of reports showing how we can do that. And without city council oversight, I'm not sure that can get done. So I'm against privatization and definitely want to maintain control of Austin Energy and city council.
Okay, let's go to District 7. We're going to go to Jeb Boyd.
Well, I think that the citizens of Austin are very clear that they want to see the council maintain control and oversight of Austin Energy. There's no interest in seeing it transferred to an independent board or let alone privatized, such a valuable asset to the city. Now that said, I think there's a lot of questions about what the form of the oversight and governance by the council looks like. Is it going to be full council? Is it a subcommittee of the council? is it a hybrid board with a majority of council members on the board? I think one of the most important things for us to do next year is to have a real conversation about this. Last year, in the 2013 rate case, we really bobbled the conversation around the governance of Austin Energy and deferred it, and especially under the new structure of this new council, I take the opportunity to really look and see what is the best way for the council to provide the regular management and oversight of the utility with full openness and input from the public.
One is press that to the left as well.
Hi, thank you. Our Austin Energy is a municipally owned utility, and the city council should maintain the responsibility for governing it. I think when you make a copy of a copy, you're also, that's saying establishing an independent board, you're taking away a level of accountability that's necessary. We are not elected if you deem us unworthy. And so I believe that responsibility should be held by office holders, and office holders that are beholden to the public. That said, I also think that while I applaud what happened on August 28th, I think that there could have been more informed discussion on that issue. I'm glad that it went through, but I also would like to see a structure of subcommittees where there is education, there is time and discussion, and things move forward in a way with full understanding of council members and council consent. So I believe in the informed consent that we need across the board. Thank you.
Pretty much agree with what I'm hearing here from all my colleagues. Austin's water and electric utilities exist for the public good, and the best way to have accountability is through the elected officials. Having served on the Water Wastewater Commission, I'm very aware and very familiar with how working with staff can be working with a closed system of information. So we need to bust that open and shine more light on the information that we gather. We can do that through input from groups that are represented here, that are sponsoring this forum, and we can also look at independent consultants outside of the city and outside of staff to bring an additional level of professional advice and counsel to the city council. But I would fully support and do fully support retaining oversight and control of Austin's public utilities with the city council. Thank you.
Hello, Pete Salazar. Absolutely, I think the governance should stay with the city council. But I also think there needs to be more culpability. When we pass things at midnight when the opposing people leave, that's a problem. That's a problem for us as a city, whether or not we agree with the results or not. That's why I want to have another city council person for each person that's on council. That sole responsibility is to have that conversation with public utilities. Because we need to fix problems and ideas when they're fresh and when they're immediately there. While letting it fester and blow up, you lose the public discourse and you lose an understanding just on bureaucracy. And we can't do that. We can't allow what happened in August. We can't pass things like that effectively because it makes us look bad, it makes us as a city and as a people. Thank you.
I can't imagine that we would ever privatize the utility. I think the citizens have certainly spoken that they want to maintain city council control. I just think that we have to remember what the purpose of the city council is. The city council is a policy-making body, and the reality of it is the talents and abilities that get you elected to something like the city council are probably not the same skill set that help you run an electric utility. So that said, I think it's really important that we maintain the use of the boards and commission system that's already in place. Obviously, professional consultants, that sort of thing. I mean, this is a huge, huge undertaking. We absolutely want to make sure that going forward with this next council, that there's citizen input, which I think the transition to the 10-1 is going to be more citizen input than ever, hopefully, but the citizen input with regard to affordability in the immediate. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that the Austin Energy and all of our public utilities need to stay in the authority of the city. One of the things that concerns me is that currently There is a staff that's inside Austin Energy that's making it difficult for a lot of progressive and innovative progress to be done. Our business model is an old one, and it's not looking forward. It's not there to protect our energy or save energy and have renewable options, but it's also there as a consumption, and we need to change that model. And we need more citizens on board, but we need fresh professional citizens, not the same people who are always on the same boards and doing the agenda of council and the administration. And we have to work hard to make sure that this stays the City of Austin residents' energy plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. So we're going to go ahead and stick with District 7 on this next question. And Jimmy, we're going to have you start. This is also a 1-minute question. Where do you stand on achieving Austin's climate protection goal, including implementation of the goal adopted by City Council on August 28th in the Affordable Energy Resolution of making Austin energy generation resources carbon-free by 2030?
I'm supportive of this resolution. I think that in the renewable energy market, we have to be ambitious. And I think that Austin has been a leader, mostly due to the advocacy of some of the people in this room. And what I want to express, while I'm completely supportive of that, I do have a lot of questions with regard to how we actually achieve this goal and we conceptualize what we're going to do. Storage, energy storage, as everybody in this room knows, is a key component of allowing for the full use of intermittent power. And we need to, while we invest in this goal, and it is a laudable and a good goal, we need to also focus on our ability to create storage, whether that's compressed air energy storage or battery storage. Those are the kinds of things that we need to look up to offset what are the practical implications of this new goal. Thank you.
I do support the Austin's climate protection goal, and when I worked for the National Wildlife Federation for 7 years during the 2000s, that was a chief aim and mission of the National Wildlife Federation. We were very concerned about carbon uptake, and we went across the country with the Al Gore Foundation train the trainers on carbon sequestration. I think that the city's 2020 goals need to have a special focus on middle to low income so that we can get conservation numbers increased in the lower income, mixed income parts of town. And if that includes special targeted programs, I would support those. Thank you.
Absolutely, I'm in agreement with Austin's carbon-free goals by 2030. And I think a big way we do that is by making solar energy more available to people. We live in Texas. The sun is a resource, we all understand that, especially in August. But how do we make sure that everyone has access to these technologies? I think the public utility can do a lease for solar program that will benefit the entire city by making the upfront cost of solar energy available to all. We can use this as a resource for all of Austin and have a plethora of energy to give back to as our resources. But we need to make it available. It's not that difficult to do. We just need to make it an option and a #1 priority, so that we can be more dependent on solar energy and less than on carbon fuels in those capacities. We just have to make it a #1 priority, and I intend to do that. Thanks so much.
I actually think that the current council's done a good job in moving us in the proper direction. If you look at this date, 2030, 16 years from now, if you look back 16 years, it goes back to what, 98, something like that. Well, that's a long time. I absolutely support the work that's already been done, the initiatives that have already been done, the work that's been actually put into the charter through the Imagine Austin plan. We are not only dedicated to promoting this, but at this point we have to, by law, follow that. I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't support this. I have 2 kids, one of whom still lives in Austin. You know, I may not be around in 2030, but I know that they'll probably be here. And I think it's always important that we preserve the next generation's lifestyle. Thank you.
I'm excited to see that the city I live in and love has the goal to go carbon-free in a few short years. And there's things that we need to implement. And so we all agree and we all want that, but I think I'm the only one on here who has those real solutions how to do it. We need more cars off the road. And not just have cars off the road, but we have some power plants that are emitting carbon that we need out of our air. And more importantly, we need to keep the trees on the ground because what carbon's out there, we need their help to help us clean it. So we need to support not just the Heritage Tree Ordinance, which is a wonderful ordinance, but we need to make sure that there is open land available on our properties to help filter this. These are things that will help us, that are cost effective, it doesn't affect our rates, and it gets us to our goal sooner and more effectively. And that's what I'm looking at, is making this a solution-based council and not just supporting it, but really getting in and getting our hands clean with energy.
Well, being carbon-free in generation by 2030 is a noble goal, and I think it's great that this council's put a challenge before the city to see if we can aggressively move forward to make it happen. We've got with the falling price of solar energy, we've got some great opportunities for getting there, both through large-scale generation plants and also through distributed solar, where people have it on the roofs of their homes and businesses. Solar particularly is useful in Texas, where because our summer afternoon peak loads and all the air conditioning is running is when we have the greatest power demands. While we have some great wind power potential, wind blows at night, but we can balance the solar and the wind to really make our grid and the power supply work overall. Still, it's going to be difficult getting to this goal of 2030, and this provision does, the council did include themselves an out, which unfortunately may just kick the can down the road with this, but I think we need to move forward with everything we can to see if we can get to the goal by 2030.
Thank you, District 7. Let's move to District 1. And just to reiterate the question, where do you stand on achieving Austin's climate protection goal, including implementation of the goal adopted by City Council in the Portable Energy Resolution of making Austin energy generation resources carbon-free by 2030?
Well, I'm going to buck the trend a little bit here. I think that we have to be careful that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. SDNP, the South Texas Nuclear Power Plant, really wasn't built properly. My uncle's a nuclear engineer. He worked on that project, and he knows. And we're right up the jet stream from the SDNP project. If we want to go carbon-free by investing more in nuclear, I would say we need to be really careful before we go down that road. So going carbon-free by investing in the right energy sources is definitely the way we should go. I support using the Eddie Rodriguez Homestead Preservation District to establish a TIF, a tax incremental fund. We use the funds from that TIF to help fund solar installation on the rooftops of people with low income. This can provide affordable energy and actually feedback to our grid, and can be provided in the form of a forgivable loan, similar to the down payment assistance programs. We have to think outside the box on all the issues, and we always have to think, what are the possible unintended consequences, even on things that sound really good on paper.
Thank you. I think District 1, I'm not speaking for all of us, but there's some issues that we're concerned about. And that is that the people in District 1 want predictable, dependent energy sources that they can do with low resources. And so we always have to balance what that does as far as the rate increases for the people in District 1. There are 25% people in poverty in District 1. 6,000 of those are children. And so, although it may, as I said before, it may not be a big deal for some districts, it is a big deal for us. I support the goals. I look forward to making that transition. That's going to be a big challenge for us by that time, but I look forward to helping make those decisions about how we can do it in a cost-effective way so people are not penalized.
My name is Norman Jacobson. I support the goals. However, I think it's they seem a little unreasonable. I don't think we can achieve those goals, but we need more solar power. I think every house should have solar panels on them. And that sounds like a little exaggeration, but also there's considerable dangers to using nuclear power, and also the refined uranium for the nuclear power stations creates a lot of fluorine pollution, and fluorine is also it's a greenhouse gas that's even stronger than carbon dioxide. By using a lot of nuclear power, we're generating a lot more fluorine into the atmosphere and into our water supplies. And I'm much in favor of more solar power, and I think that's the way to go as much as possible. Thank you.
Hi, Valerie Menard in District 1. Yes, of course, I am very much in favor of the goal for reducing, being carbon free by 2030. So long as we've achieved this by increasing our use of renewable energy sources, solar and wind namely. I was thrilled to find out about the Weberville solar farm and a solar briefing recently. Although it's in District 3, it's not technically in District 1. We're neighbors. We're separated only by one road. So I definitely plan to embrace that, to use that as a platform to educate folks in District 1 about the value of renewable energy and solar. We also need to increase our information. There is a lot of good work, a lot of good programs already, rebates, et cetera. But I don't really think that a lot of the community is aware of that, certainly not the traditionally underserved community. So I would also support a marketing campaign to make sure that we get that information out there.
Michael Cargill here. Yes, I do support doing something, but that's why my business was the first one in the state of Texas to actually get a solar power sign, because those are some of the things that I'm interested in. Those are some of the things that we can actually put money back onto the grid. We have AISD, some of our schools, they actually are, some of them are dilapidated and they're old, and we need to build newer schools. The way we can do that is we do that on the outskirts, on the outer portion of the city, and sell some of the property that some of those schools are sitting on, which they're sitting on prime real estate. We can actually make money from that because they're worth billions of dollars, and then build a better school with newer infrastructure and be able to put solar power panels on those facilities and sell that power back to the Austin Energy and put energy back on the grid by lowering our tax base and lowering our tax rate as well. And that's how we're going to do it. Need to get serious about it.
Thank you. If you could pass it down to Aura, we're going to go ahead and stick with District 1. So this is also going to be a 1-minute question. Pretty straightforward. What is your position on retiring Austin Energy's gas-fired Decker power plant and coal-fired Fayette power plant?
And when I answered this question on the questionnaire, I said, I'm interested why nobody asked about the biomass plant up in Nacogdoches. You all talk about that, but the thing that I was concerned about, nobody even mentioned that. So, with the Fayette coal power plant, yes, it does have a lot of negative emissions, but now the people in Fayette County are our stakeholders as well. It's not just up to Austin to make those decisions. We have to communicate with the people because those are good paying jobs. It will affect their economy. Yes, some people have been negatively affected like the pecan growers have been. But so we've got to broaden that conversation, not only from Austin, but also down to Fayette County to see what is their response. What do they feel that needs to be done to their plant? We cannot, as Austin, make decisions for another county, but if all things are equal, and they're fine with it, I'm willing to close it. On the Decker plant, I need to know what some of the data, what are some of the financial obligations we have.
I believe that these Austin Energy gas-fired Decker plant and coal-fired plants should be eventually retired, but I think in the meantime we need to replace the energy supply that's being by them and put more scrubbers on their smokestacks to make sure it doesn't pollute the air around the plants. And like I was saying before, we need more solar plants, solar powers. And the schools can be, have solar plants, solar on the tops of the buildings and in the yards, I've seen them in the schoolyards. And also industry should be encouraged to put solar panels on their buildings. And this will help them generate more electricity and get away from the gas and coal. Thank you.
Valerie Menard, District 1. As I mentioned earlier, I'm definitely a strong proponent of moving away from non-renewable energy sources toward renewable. So while it's not a simple question, what is your position? Yes, I would support retiring Decker and Fayette, but again, we have to look at the big picture and make sure that that's achievable and that our renewable energy sources will help us offset that loss. But definitely, in principle, I would support retiring Decker and Fayette.
Yes, I definitely support that, and we just need to have a plan on how we're going to do that. And I'm a businessman, and I have to, go in and open up everything and take a look at the books and see how we can make that happen and make sure that we can go forward with it. So, yes, absolutely.
Yes, I support this concept. I think it's a really good idea that we move away from fossil fuels towards sustainable, renewable energy. I think it's also important that we do substitute new forms of energy. And we move away from, we continue to have wafer fab, but we also include solar labs so that we create more of a solar economy here. And this idea of using taxing incremental fund to help fund solar on low-income people's rooftop can also create job stimulus. I think we need to diversify our economy here in Austin, and energy is a good way to do that. I think it's not just getting out of the plants, but actually decommissioning them. So I think there's a little bit more here to the question and a little bit more complexity on how we actually do that. But I am for moving towards renewables and getting away from fossil fuels.
Thank you, District 1. So we're going to go ahead and move over to Leslie Poole in District 7.
Thanks, Leslie Poole, District 7, absolutely. Closing down the gas-fired Decker plant and the coal-fired Fayette plant. And as Ora Houston mentioned, closing the Fayette plant is a little more complicated than just simply saying we're closing it down. So in that comprehensive view of our alternative fuels picture, we would need to step up what alternative fuels we have available from the West Texas wind, the West Texas solar, and the coastal wind and distributed solar. So we would need to have a comprehensive plan that is also affordable for everyone who is in town as we move toward closing down the gas-fired Decker and the more complicated picture that is the Fayette coal-fired plant. Thank you.
Hello, it's Alyssa. I think everybody's in agreement that we need to close these plants in time. But like I said, like it was mentioned, there's a variety of stakeholders. So Austin and its city entity can't say, hey, we're just going to close it down because it affects a lot of people. Like I said before, we need to make sure that we have more energy to address these gaps that we're going to have, because frankly, we don't know how the future's going to hold. We have 110 people coming here today, which means there's going to be increased needs for power and energy, and so everybody wants to close it down, but we need to make sure we increase our renewable energies, whether it be wind or solar, and once we can understand that gap can be met, then we can have this conversation. Everybody wants to live a carbon-free life, but we need to make sure we do it effectively. Thank you.
One of the things I want to bring to this council is a business perspective on some of these things. I think that it's important that we balance our ideals with good business decision making. Yeah, we want to get out of both of these plants sooner rather than later. We'd love to sell our interest or close them down, but the reality of it is the business decision means that, one, we have to find a replacement for that energy, and two, we take a huge hit. Any one of us in this room can go out in the parking lot right now and sell our car for cash, but we're not going to get what we want for it. So we have to move very carefully towards either getting out of these things, finding a buyer, which we've been trying to do for years, or retiring them. But we need to make sure that we don't do it on the backs of Austin ratepayers. Thank you.
There's no question Melissa Zone is all for retiring both of these plans. I think we need to start now, and this current council would be a great opportunity to work. We have an interlocal agreement with LCRA for the Fayette plan, and we need to now start walking and talking and negotiating with them on how to phase this out. And in the process, because we have the Decker plan, we can easily start moving in. As most of you probably know, there's wonderful, it's become wetlands out that way. And though it didn't start that way, we now have them. We need to look to protect that. It becomes a brownfield, but what we have is renewable energy sources out there. I would love to be the city in America that is similar to how Germany is. I don't know about you, but I certainly like the fact that they have become less dependent on these old, antiquated sources of energy, and we need to move forward like that. Thank you.
Well, yes, absolutely. We should look at retiring both of these plants. These are complex questions. We're looking in terms of our generation mix, the operation, the operational plants. I'm not in favor of trying to find a quick sale on the Fayette plant. And I think it would not serve our interest to sell the plant to someone who would only seek to maximize their profit and interest in the plant by burning as much coal as they could. On the Decker plant, there's another interesting opportunity in that Decker Lake is currently used as a cooling pond. And one of the things that opportunities we would have by retiring that plant is to be able to use the lake as part of the city's water management. So that's a great opportunity. So we should look for on that as well too. These are great, important questions. Move forward through deliberately with a lot of consideration before making a final decision.
I agree this is a very complicated question. Well, the answer seems easy on its face. It's more complicated than that. The Decker power plant generates over 900 megawatts of electricity for us. And I am an advocate for close them as we go. The problem is that you have a convergence of two separate markets that operate very differently. One is incentivized and not completely reliable. Another one is cheap and reliable. I am all for closing the Decker power plant. It is due for retirement anyway. I have more questions on the Fayette plant. I agree that we should find new uses for Decker. And I just think that one of the things that we need to do is be aware that nobody wants to continue to burn coal. And nobody's in favor of that. And nobody would sponsor a resolution to do so. But we have to ensure that we look at the financial economic structure of what we're doing as we close and go and move towards these ambitious goals in 2030. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. If you could pass that down to Pete, please. So we've heard a lot about solar power so far today, and I'm going to ask you all to dive a little bit deeper. So what is your position on customer adoption of solar energy at homes, small businesses, and what, if any, specific policy changes would you support?
Like I stated before, like I said, working with Caritas, a lot of my job was to create budgets to see how people can rise and become more effective. And I think solar energy has that capacity. But we really need to institute a lease-to-own capacity. I think if we do that, because as we know, even if you had the money, it'd be probably a $5,000 investment after the tax incentive to that capacity. So if Austin Energy can do a lease-to-own capacity, that means everyone that has their own home can establish solar energy there. And eventually, between 5 to 7 years, they can pay that off. And then they'll have a capacity of not only using the energy, but through the life of that home. Regardless if it gets transferred to another people, once it gets resold, we can have that and sell it back to the market. I think it's something that we need to investigate and implement as soon as possible. Because as we know, we're only going to grow and our energy needs are only going to increase. So this is a vital thing that we need to establish. Thank you so much.
I think this question really speaks to the role of government. I am all in favor of solar. I think it becomes a question of whether we want to mandate it or incentivize it. Personally, I'm all for incentives. The reality of it is if you're building a new home or building a new business, obviously it's a great time to install solar. If you lived in a home or had a business for a long time and it's mandated, it's going to be very expensive for you. All right. I think, again, it comes down to how we want to influence people to move in the direction of our ideals. I'm all in favor of incentives.
I applaud the idea of just not only having solar energy in the homes and the businesses. One of the main reasons that I got in this race was because I'm the only candidate who's written land development regulations. And to incorporate something this progressive, you need that candidate who once in city council can make sure that staff is applying the right regulations. Because part of solar energy is getting it through and permitting it. And there's great companies out there now that would be more than happy to be retrofitting homes and working with new businesses and new home builders if they didn't have to go through the minutia of the city regulations. And the land development code was really the main objective when people were asking me to run that. I said, yes, I'll do it. Because we have to be progressive, not just in the way we think, but also in how we apply these regulations.
Well, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, distributed solar on rooftops of homes and businesses is a great opportunity, and it's a great way to diversify our generation network and to increase the amount of solar energy generation in the city. There are a lot of additional opportunities and things we can look at going here, such as community solar, which is smaller scale projects for folks who are not able, or renters and folks that are not able to have shaded homes and whatnot can buy into the projects. Leased solar, where a third party would actually own the solar panels, but then lease them to homeowners and allowing for that. And then certainly looking at the land development code and either requiring or providing incentives that homes will be built solar ready with the wiring and everything needed so that it would be easy for a new homeowner to put the panels on.
I think that we've done a really good job of addressing the aggressive goal for distributed solar. What has been less successful is the way in which we take that energy, how we credit that energy, how we move it back onto the grid, and how we pay people for it. If we're going to have a incentivized or mandated, and I think we should have a mix of both, way to provide distributed solar to people, we have to find a way to give them a credible amount back on what they are, for what they are sacrificing, whether that means a tax exemption, a rebate, a municipal or state incentive, it really doesn't matter. The point is that we have to create a value of solar, and if that means we have to create an artificial market for some period of time, we've seen this with the carbon emissions tax as well, then we need to do things like that. It's imperative that we take action on these things rather than be reactive to the market, and sometimes that requires us to step in and mandate a few things, so that's what I'm for. Thank you.
Well, here we are in Austin, Texas, where the sun mostly shines, although we've had some good rain in the last few days. So, the city does need to push forward, even in a stronger way, on its solar policy. When solar was first introduced in Austin, I invited the staffer to come out and check out my house to see if I could put solar on it. And I do have some significant canopy cover. It's one of those ironies that we have in Austin. When you do have these lovely trees, you can't then put solar panels on there because it's not going to face in the right direction. But the other thing that was keeping us from doing it was how expensive it was. And over time, the cost of the solar panels has gone down, and we do have more local companies producing them. I'd like to see solar pushed in the lower income areas of town with the low and middle income so that they can get a better generation of energy, and my time is up.
Thank you, Thank you, District 7. So District 1, and Norman is going to come to you. Same question. You all have a district filled with poverty, filled with folks on fixed income. How would you get solar to more folks in your district?
I think there should be incentives for installing solar panels on the homes and businesses, and maybe low interest loans to finance them. I think solar energy is cost effective over the long term. Right now, the price is a little high because of the monopolies with, I think General Electric is keeping the prices high for the solar panels. But I've heard that they're coming down considerably in Japan, and new solar panels are considerably cheaper than they were in Japan. And I don't think there should be mandates. I think there should be incentives would be the best way to go. Essentially, that's my position on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie Menard, District 1. As I mentioned earlier, the Weberville Solar Farm is a good place to start. I believe the intention with that was to get, or to make solar energy more affordable by lowering the cost and getting a buy-in with traditionally underserved communities. So that is, I think, a very well-kept secret that really needs to be brought to the attention of folks, and we need to use that again as a platform. Also, may I ask how many folks here are from District 1? Great. So we know, but I want to show everyone else that our specific needs are that our affordability. Our median income is $42,000. In Austin, it's $54,000. We have more renters than we have homeowners. So moving forward, we also have a great need of economic development and affordable housing. I would propose incentives for affordable housing and multifamily housing to encourage builders to incorporate solar energy into their plan and to have incentives so that they will do that.
Mike Ricardo. Like I said, limited by example. I was doing an interview for the New York Times, and he asked me, how did you do the things, some of the things you did with your transportation company? I said, well, that's because we use fuel-efficient vehicles. We're going to have to do that with our homes, and we have to be serious about the incentives. I know that some people feel that taking some of that energy away from Austin Energy, we're going to lose some of that revenue. But we're actually, by doing solar panels, we're actually going to, put money back into the grid. We're going to put power back into the grid and be able to, build that infrastructure. The city facilities that we have, like I said, on those prime real estate properties, we can sell those properties for billions of dollars and build facilities on the outskirts and build a nice eco-friendly facility and put money back into the grid and lower that tax base.
Yes, I support the Weberville Solar Farm. I also think that we can encourage and incentivize solar. District 1 is a very diverse district. We have some people with, that are, well above 100% median family income, and we have some areas of poverty. So we need to have opportunities to incentivize solar power in houses, and then other opportunities to give some forgivable loans for development. We also have to recognize that not all rooftops can support the structure of solar power. One of the barriers that we have is connecting people in need with the resources that are available. So we need to remember that we need to make those connections. So before somebody can get solar, they may need to access Neighborhood Housing Community Development Program for home repair, to stop their leaky roof, and to be able to have it be sound enough to hold solar. So I think with our energy grid, the closer we can get the energy source to the source of using the energy, the less energy we're going to lose in that process. So I think shortening that distance from provider to user is going to help make our system more efficient.
Thank you. I am a proponent of solar. I've tried to find out how much it would cost. It's prohibitive for me on a fixed income. But if we had community solar, then I could, look into that. I think the first thing we need to do is educate the people in the community in District 1, because as others have said, there's some people that this is not a big deal. They can purchase solar and not a problem. But there are other people in the district that don't know the benefits of solar and don't have any idea about what to do about solar. The other part of that is jobs. We need jobs in District 1, and if we could get a industry that would train our young people and our old people as well to actually be the people to install solar panels, that would be a great benefit for District 1. So if we can do it and we can help people do it efficiently and not increase their property tax rate or their utility bills, I'm for it.
We're going to have in the next decade. We have more people moving to Austin. We're going to have to work with the legislator. I've worked with the legislator for the last 4 sessions. You're going to need someone, you're going to need a strong voice in District 1 to be able to communicate with the legislator and actually get the things we need done here for our water in Texas, period. Because it's going to be a major problem.
We should pay really close attention to who is fracking and who's not fracking, because the whole fracking process actually creates an opportunity for contamination of our aquifers. And there was an article a couple of weeks ago about this in the paper, that this is actually happening. So in areas where they do this, it creates fracturing. I'm not real deep in on understanding it, but it creates an opportunity for caustic chemicals to get into the water supply, and I think that's very dangerous. I know that water and oil doesn't mix. It's probably why fracking works. It somehow gets this oil out, but I think it's a very dangerous thing that we need to pay close attention to. Having experience of living on the aquifer and what that means. It has the potential to have some really negative impacts. Of course, I think that we always need to look at alternative energy sources and to move away from oil and move into clean resources.
In the beginning, I talked about the silos, and this is one of those areas where I think it's really critical that the development community and the environmental community come together to talk about water. We are not going to be able to sustain the growth if we don't do something about water, and we have to do that collaboratively and collectively. I am against fracking because it says to me that Mother Earth does not want all that stuff pushed down, and I'm not an expert on this by any means, but just common sense tells me that it is, it makes the earth rebel. It's an intrusion, and we shouldn't be doing it because we don't know what the outcomes are over a long period of time. But I'm totally against fracking. And then, of course, some of the other water uses are at decades. So we need to look at that as we move forward with more sustainable, renewable energy. I think that's it.
My name is Norman Jacobson. I've been reading a lot about fracking, and what I've been hearing is that fracking they're doing it out in the boondocks, and nobody's really keeping an eye on them. And it creates a tremendous amount of pollution to the environment, and we're in the midst of a drought, so we should not want any fracking in Texas. We need to protect the water we have. We need it for drinking and for farmland and for other uses. We don't want our resources, our environment destroyed, and we have other ways of getting oil. Texas is one of the leading producers of oil with all their oil wells, so why do we need fracking? Thank you.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate the question for District 7, what role should water play when we're selecting our energy sources at Austin-Emerson?
Well, this is an interesting question. Fracking, when I studied economics at UT, I remember Vince DeLisi, the guy that taught public finance, he said it always depends on where you stand, what you have as to where you stand. Obviously, if you've got land and you're fracking and you've got an oil well or something, you're probably all in favor of fracking. I think most of the public doesn't have that sort of thing. I'm shocked that there's not more investigation into fracking. I know that a year or so ago there was a professor at UT that was found to be on the payroll of one of the energy companies, and he was promoting false information in his professional studies about fracking. Anyhow, I think that in the short term, obviously, this has helped us to create some energy independence, which in a bigger picture around the world has given us a little more position and leverage, but I think we really need to look into this carefully.
Thank you. One of my roles in Travis County is doing water planning. And fracking has been a real concern of mine, and I have extensive training in the last 4 years in fracking alone. What concerns me is not only that we're using a large amount of water, and we're using a precious resource to extract, but we're also pumping chemicals into our groundwater. This is ridiculous. Our aquifers are being affected, and we have to be more conscientious about our environment. There are other ways to go about this and to solve the problems. One of the biggest concerns I have is that at the state level, and from my training, is they encourage this. And we, at the city, or at the county, I do legislative analysis, and we're often going and lobbying to the state to remove this. And we have to continue and be stronger about it.
Well, one of the key aspects here is this water energy mix. It takes water to generate energy, and it takes energy to move fresh water around and get it to our houses. So this is a very important thing that we need to keep in mind during operation of our utilities. On the fracking side, absolutely, one of the biggest issues and concerns with fracking is their use of fresh water, putting chemicals in it, and then injecting it down into these deep formations where it is gone forever. Never going to be part of our hydrological cycle. So we really push the legislature certainly to make sure that the oil extraction industries are paying the full cost for their fracking operations. In terms of our management of the groundwater and all of our surface water resources throughout, I think it's important that the city should look and work through CapCog with our regional partners to develop a comprehensive plan for the use of all of our groundwater and surface water resources.
Again, there's a very complex interplay of things going on here. The ecosystem that we are affected by, the water that we use, the water that we consume, is not limited to the man-made boundaries that we draw. If we use 16% of the Lower Colorado River Authority's, the Lower Colorado Lakes water, just in the city of Austin, if we are siphoning off those resources to places where they will not be replenished, they won't go back into an aquifer, and they certainly won't go back in the same form in which they were pumped in at. Of course, you're going to need, and we don't understand fully the environmental impacts of such a traumatic thing that we're doing deep below the surface. So, of course, I'm opposed to fracking. I'm opposed to using fresh water to do those things. And thank you.
Well, our water is a finite resource, and we can look out at Lake Travis and see how low the level is. It ticked up slightly in the storm that we had earlier this week, but it will be falling again unless we get a huge storm over Lake Travis. So we've got a finite resource. It's vulnerable and it's precious, and we can't make it rain. Fracking uses a tremendous amount of water in its extraction processes, and then it fouls what else is down there with the chemicals that are forced in there. I can't say anything good about fracking. I just think it's awful, and I want to stop it. And I think that we need to slow down the rampant economic development that's going on in Austin. It's like drinking from a fire hose for another water image. And we just can't do it. We don't have the infrastructure in place, and we don't have the water resources in order to provide water to everybody who's moving here. So I want to slow that down and make it much more intentional, much more deliberate, and much more focused. Thank you.
Being born and raised in Austin, you always, even as a child, had this idea that the Edward Aquifer was sacred. That was something you watched when you play, how you conducted yourself. We knew that we were connected to the Edward Aquifer just for life. And fracking, like I said, I mean, it's a horrible thing, and we all agree, but it's $1 billion industry. So we're running against the premier of the premier people that are literally getting $1 billion a day. So we really have to define ourselves as who we're going to be as a city, what our values are. And this goes into development. I mean, we're all aware about Apple, you know, when they were doing their development, how some of those pollutants came into the aquifer. That's something that the city of council is going to have to address. How do we define ourselves as a city, what we consider good conduct, and creating a baseline of what's allowed? We all understand that fracking is bad. We all need to understand that development, even though it brings jobs and things, we need to protect our natural resources. Because in the end, we're not going to be able to drink money. We can only have water. Thanks so much.
Thanks. If you could pass that down to Melissa, we're going to stick with District 7. So, by show of hands, did anybody have a really high electric bill last month? Only a few. All right, well, I'm going to tell you a story about my neighborhood in Montopolis and my neighbors. We, all around the little block, had bills over $500. Okay.
Say that again?
Over $500 our electric bills in August. So, I would like to hear, personally, and for my neighbors and other folks around town who are on fixed incomes, what, if any, changes would you support to make electric bills more affordable for low-income customers? And what will you do to help them conserve energy?
Thank you. Melissa Zone, District 7. One of the things I'd like us to continue doing, which Austin Energy does, is the weatherization and sealing of homes and making sure that it goes to the people. Our outreach is okay, but really you see them in places where those who need it most don't attend. I'd like to see it get more aggressive at our local grocery stores, at the local churches, educate the people, and get groups involved that would be willing to go out and help these homeowners. That's one way to reduce it. The other part is there's wonderful grants, and years ago I used to work with a nonprofit agency where we would write grants to get homes to be upgraded and become more energy efficient. And the whole point of it was the first eco-village in the United States, and it was in Cleveland, Ohio. And we put it in a low-income family neighborhood because we knew it would help their utility bills. Those are the types of programs I'd like to see here and implemented.
Well, yes, absolutely. Weatherization has been a very successful program. It is an excellent way to help keep people in their homes and reducing their bills and their energy needs. The bottom line matter, though, is really it comes down to rates, and trying to make sure we keep our electric rates and our water rates as affordable as possible, and that goes directly into the governance and the operations of the system. I think that needs to be absolutely the primary thing. We do not need to be increasing rates as we're continuing to keep high levels of revenue sharing between utilities and the city. The other thing is that in the 2013 rate case, we actually, it was granted a great discount was given to some of the affluent folks in the western part of the county because they live outside the city and are not part, or it's not seen that they benefit from the rebate from the utility. We need to look at alternatives so we can get those folks paying the same rates as folks in Montopolis. It's a matter of fairness.
Thank you. The energy efficiency programs that the city has instituted have been remarkably effective at a low cost. We get out $13 million in rebates, $16 million in savings in 2013. One of the problems, especially as it relates to low income, is that you have a lot of renters, and that cost for doing energy efficiency should be passed on to landowners, to people who own these places where people are renting. If it costs on average $7,400 to weatherize and make a home energy efficient, you're seeing an annual payback of about $175. So you can see over the course of the lifetime of the property that it would take you 40 years to pay that back. So I would like to see some of these costs, especially where it relates to multiple units, passed on to owners and not renters, and I think that's a good way to think about how to do that. Smart metering and education and some of these other things that we can do will also go a long way towards helping these families. Thank you.
So I'd just like to talk about two things right off, cost of service and weatherization. The cost of service, what we're looking at right now, during the rate case in 2013, I think it started in 2008, there was a compromise where the commercial and light industrial rates were combined with the residential rates. So what we are now doing is paying a slice, a portion of the heavy load that the commercial and light industrial ratepayers were paying. So I would like to see us revisit that. I understand that these conversations are very difficult and very complicated, but I think it is a worthwhile conversation to have. The second thing I would say on the weatherization, I've used the city's weatherization programs in 2 of the houses that I've owned, and they do a great job with the insulation and the ceiling and sealing of the windows and the doors. I would like to see them pushed further into the mixed income parts of town, much like what Jimmy was just saying, providing rebates to the apartments so that we can have these programs benefit renters and lower their utility costs. Thank you.
Hello. I think we really need to boil this down. I mean, this issue is really an issue of dignity. You're talking about Metropolis. We're talking about District 1. We're talking about District 3. These houses in these areas were allowed to exist in their current level because the city of Austin, frankly, just didn't care. And because we had some urban renewal and gentrification, people have moved. And so now that value has gone up in the eyes of the city. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know, but it's a reality. And that's what we're seeing now. We need to have a baseline of just human dignity of what people's houses should look like and what we should do to make it livable. Because that's what this whole election is about. Regardless if we put it in terms of electricity or whatever, is what do we find as livable for the city of Austin and its people? And of course, we're benefiting everybody. Thank you.
Ken Herman wrote a funny column in the paper last week about how a lot of people in Austin don't even know that we're transitioning to this 10-1. He said, how can that happen? All you have to do is pick up a newspaper, turn on your TV, the radio, your phone, your computer. I think it's the same thing. It relates to this question. The city already has a lot of programs, weatherization, replacement of appliances. There's all kinds of programs. I think a lot of people just don't know that those programs exist. I think we need to have a better outreach to let these people know that they exist. Now that said, the reality of it is a lot of times the problem is renters. So I think that we're going to have to follow the money. I hate to say it, but we're going to have to follow the money, and we're going to have to go to the property owners and probably provide better incentives for them, particularly with rental units, better incentives to weatherize and replace air conditioning and home appliances. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the dangers that we can fall, one of the traps we can fall into on city council is to make assumptions. So I'd like to ask you, was it your utility bill that was 400 or your entire bill?
It was the utility bill,
And
including water.
And what do you attribute it to?
Most everyone in our community is a renter, old homes, poorly insulated, inefficient.
So you feel that having the program that would help insulate and would benefit. So I think it's important that we ask that question and then we look at the issue of the cost savings that would come from those energy efficiencies versus the customer assistance program. The customer assistance program is a direct benefit that can go to people to help offset their energy costs. Of course, we want to work towards conservation of energy, but we also need to look at where we get the biggest return on investment and benefit for our consumers. Sometimes it's not going to be cost effective to do the weatherization. It's going to be more effective to help provide a customer assistance program. So we always need to be careful that we don't make assumptions about the causes and we're open to different solutions.
Having been in District 1 for a long time, some of it is about benign neglect of the houses in District 1, and so they don't hold the heat or the energy or the air conditioning very well. So we've got to figure out how to connect Habitat for Humanity and some of the other rehabilitation programs that can come in, see what they can do to rehab the house before we go in and weatherize it. The other thing that concerns me is in multifamily units and in those that are leased. Once those things, the property owners are absentee landlords, and so once they upgrade their property, the rent is going to go up. And so how do we prevent that from impacting the people who've lived there for years under very awful conditions? And once everything is upgraded, because we give them incentives, then they can't afford to live there any longer.
My name is Norman Jacobson. I have nothing against electric cars. In fact, I think they're a great idea. But I think it's unfair that the low-income people should subsidize the wealthy doctors who own electric cars. A doctor can drive an electric car for a whole year for $150 a year instead of having to pay $3,000 or $4,000 a year for gas. Why should the low-income people pay for the electricity for electric car owners? I think it's unfair, and it was originally initiated by a doctor who talked to, on the emails in 2010 to Chris Riley. Says, meet me for dinner and we'll discuss electric car subsidies for the city of Austin. Thank you.
Valerie Menard, District 1. I wanted to thank David for sharing that information with us today, and also to thank you all for your questionnaires, and the wealth of research that you provided us to help us complete these questions. And when I was looking at the questionnaire, I was looking at this research, I saw that low-income homes may be half the size, but are using 28% more energy. And David just dramatized that for us. I don't know about y'all, but I think that's an outrage for folks who are least available, to least likely, or at least afford to pay for energy, to be paying that kind of a scale. And to me, that's a crisis. That's something that we need to address immediately at council. This should not continue. I'm lucky, I have double pane windows, and I know to I actually turn my air conditioner off during peak hours. This is an education issue. As I mentioned, we need a marketing campaign to get this information to underserved communities, but we have to address this right now. I see this as a crisis. Thank you, David.
I'm actually glad you brought that up because it reminded me I need to go to my phone and I actually change the temperature of my AC at my house and now also at my business. So thank you for bringing that up. There are programs out there that will give incentives. We just need to educate the voters on those different programs. There's an app for your phone that you can use to change that temperature on your AC, and it doesn't even cost that much. We just need to educate our voters, because on one side, we're saying, hey, we want to lower the tax bill. On the other side, if we lower that tax bill, we're saying, guess what? We're going to lose some of that revenue that's going to Austin Energy. So, you got to get serious about it. Do we really want to educate the voters on what some of their options are and tell them what those incentives are out there? Then, let's go ahead and do it. Not just talk outside of our mouths.
I'm sorry, I said we were supposed to see if we did that.
Okay. Oh, great. So we're going to run through the next couple of questions a little bit quicker, 30-second questions. You mentioned renters, all of y'all mentioned renters. 55% of Austinites are renters. And sometimes we're limited in our ability to get new thermostats, get our homes upgraded. So what is your position on requiring owners of apartments and other rental properties to meet minimum energy efficiency standards?
Definitely on the new properties, Michael Cargill again, definitely on the new properties that are being built, then yes, we can get them to do that. It's going to be hard. You're talking about property owners' rights. So it's going to be hard to force a property owner to upgrade something that's already there and already existing, especially if they can't afford to do it. But we can educate them on the different incentives and definitely help them to try to upgrade those properties.
Yes, I would go with incentives first and really try to encourage energy efficiency standards. I do think we need to be careful. We have a huge problem that is also related with our permitting process, which really can delay projects for a very long time and add a lot of cost to it. So we need to also address that issue, that as we're mandating new requirements that we're allowing the capacity for those to go through the process quickly and not making it so expensive that it's not affordable or even obtainable. But I do think it's good for us to have some basic requirements and also use incentives.
Or Houston, and I think that as we develop multifamily properties, then that's when we say these are the energy efficiency measures that we would require on all multifamily units, because I think that's the only way we're gonna start that kind of initiative to say everybody has got to put some skin in this game. I don't know how you make that across the board, because I know that the minute that some of the houses over off of Terry Road and in the Metropolis area and places in District 1, they're going to be out of rent. They're not going to be able to afford the rent.
We need incentives for the property owners because right now they have no incentive to have efficient apartments because they don't, the renters pay the bills for the heating and cooling. So we need to give the property owners incentives so that the property owners can reduce their costs. And also they can, and building codes could require it for new constructions. Thank you.
Valerie Menard, District 1. Yes, I would hold a stakeholders meeting. I think that it is important to get landowners to abide to meet the minimum efficiency standards, but we also have to make sure that what they do with incentives, and I'm sure that's what it'll take, they'll have to offer incentives, that it doesn't get passed on to the renters. And so I think with the stakeholders meeting, we bring both sides together, the renters, the builders, apartment owners, to see where we can come to an agreement in order to meet these energy efficiency standards.
Yes, well, absolutely. New construction is definitely require this. Same for remodel, renovation of existing apartments. The challenge is getting so much of our affordable housing base in existing apartments. How do we get encourage and incentivize landlords to make those improvements and in a way they can do it so the costs are not passed through immediately to the tenants.
I'm in full agreement on this one. The cost of the new construction to implement just minimum energy efficiency standards is far less than it is to apply to existing low-income housing. But to the extent that there is ability to pay on the owner's side of things, I'm absolutely for it. We have an obligation to not use government as a blunt instrument such that the free market can just use this as a pass-through to renters. Thank you.
So yeah, new construction would have to be built to the highest LEED standards, and we need to weatherize existing ones, and we can use incentives and education. I'd like to partner with Habitat for Humanity, the churches, community groups. I'm a graduate of Leadership Austin, 1999-2000. That would be a great program for Leadership Austin to get in front of and work with the community and the churches and the community groups and the neighbors and refit and renovate the drafty older homes that are in the lower income parts of town. Thank you.
I think we can absolutely do it. I mean, I grew up in the city of Austin where there was plastic bags smoking, and 20 years later we don't have any of that. So it's possible. But the thing is how are we going to make it affordable? Because I sat on the housing committee for ECHO, and we have PSH, public supportive housing. And this is the type of environment that can make people homeless if they pass on those costs. So the city is just going to have to eat the cost of it. If we're willing to incentivize the train, let's be willing to make our houses more environmental and affordable for everyone. Thank you.
Again, I think this speaks to the role of government. Do we want to mandate this or do we want to incentivize it? I don't think anyone would argue against any kind of energy efficiency. I think we have to incentivize it. Again, you want to make sure that you're going to the people that actually own these properties. I think any kind of incentives for weatherization, air conditioning improvement and appliance improvement certainly would go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. So this goes exactly to what I was saying earlier. We need to put this in our land development regulations so that when new development comes in, we're working with those developers on either our apartments or multi-use. The other issue with it being that it's so costly is because it's not done at a grand level. So having it required early on will help to reduce costs. And those are regulations I'd like to see adopted.
Thank you. Jimmy, we're going to start with you on this next question. So we're going to go from an issue that directly impacts folks on fixed incomes and the poor to our industry and our businesses. What is your position on the continued use of utility subsidies to industrial and large-scale commercial customers?
I think this goes to a larger issue of incentivizing growth that's no longer necessary in Austin.
I don't think that's on.
There you go. That's just my soft spoken. I think this goes to a larger issue. Do I lose my comment? But by the way, okay. I'm opposed to the continued subsidy for large and industrial customers. I am for subsidizing small businesses, locally owned businesses, so that they can come off some of these rate changes that the city has instituted in a way that allows them to manage and grow and sustain their business. Thank you.
Well, I've been talking all along on the trail that I oppose the wasteful incentives and subsidies that are going to the large corporations. There is no reason why we are paying people to move here. Can you think of any reason why we're paying people to move here? Okay, let's stop it. Let's cut it out. It's a fire hose of water blasting out at us, and we're trying to keep up, and we don't have the infrastructure in place for that. So no, on industrial subsidies. Thank you.
I think it's rare when we all agree in District 7, but these are some of the issues that we do. We don't need subsidies. We're already here. People want to be here. People wanted to be here for 20 years, and now they're coming in the road. There's no need, and we just need to stop. Thank you.
If you remember, there was a time when the national tech community gravitated to Austin because of the graduates coming out of the University of Texas and because of affordability. Obviously, affordability has now become an issue. I have to agree. I think that at one time it was probably a good idea to provide some of these subsidies. I think we're at the point now we need to slow down this development. Obviously, the contracts that are already in place we have to honor, but for new companies coming in, I think we're going to have to take a pretty hard look at cutting some of these subsidies out. Thank you.
Well, I entered this race in early May. When I got in, I was the first one who started talking and saying that we do not need to be incentivizing commercial and large developers like the Sea Home project, where we gave millions of dollars to private investment. And we have typical boards and commissions who go ahead and listen to these developers and to these special interests, and they make those decisions, and none of them have ever looked or worked on behalf of Austinites. And that was one of the first issues I have, and I will continue at City Hall, making sure these subsidies are stopped.
Well, yeah, using these subsidies on the utility rates to attract new businesses is definitely a bad idea, and we do not need to be doing that. But we do have some of our existing major employers have very energy-intensive industries, and we need to look carefully at any use of subsidies at all, and use them sparingly, if at all.
Coming back up tomorrow?
I saw Michael smiling.
You're getting a chance to stretch.
I want to thank you all for posing this question like this, because usually when we talk about low-resource people, we talk about subsidies. When we talk about industry and large commercial customers, we talk about incentives. So I want to say that I do not support continued subsidies to industrial large consumers. I don't know what that exactly is now, so we'll have to have that kind of conversation to find out what exactly they're getting and how can we begin to raise them up to pay their fair share.
I'm opposed to subsidies for industrial and large commercial customers. I'm also opposed to medical doctors receiving subsidies for electric cars and having electric car stations in their offices at the expense of the low-income people. These large companies can put in LED lights and fluorescent lights to cut down on their electric bill, so they don't need the subsidy to waste electricity. Thank you.
Valerie Menard, District 1. I'm like the rest of the group here, I would definitely call for a moratorium on any continued utility subsidies to industrial and large commercial customers. But I'd also like to do an audit. I think we need an audit. A lot of times when these big companies are lured to Austin, a lot of promises are made, incentives and subsidies are given, but the promise is that in return we'll receive jobs, we'll receive support to our small business and contractors, with construction, etc. And at a recent, we need to do an audit on that, see what has been delivered.
I've been a network operations manager for a telecommunications company out of Dallas. I own a transportation company. I own a small business here in Austin. And I pay my share of taxes as a small company. And we need to do the same thing for our larger companies. They're spending so many resources, we need to make sure they pay their share of the taxes. Because I know my tax bill's real high.
Our growth rate in Austin is extremely predictable. We know that every 25 years we're going to double in population. That's going to happen whether we incentivize or not. So why do we need to incentivize? I would support looking at going to a stepped rate payer structure for commercial users of energy. What this does is it charges you more for the more that you use. So by not doing that and having a flat rate, we are subsidizing commercial users, and we're not encouraging efficiency and effective use of resources. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. We're going to stick with District 1, and this is the last question. Deep breath, and then we'll do closing statements. It is a 30-second question, and Norman, we're going to start with you. Austin Energy owns a 16% share of the 2 South Texas nuclear reactors, which are set to retire in 2027 and 2028, but they may be relicensed. Do you favor keeping, adding to, or phasing out nuclear power as an energy source for Austin Energy?
I'm in favor of phasing out nuclear power because it's been demonstrated over and over again that nuclear power is extremely dangerous to the economy. It's extremely dangerous to the environment. Look at Fukushima, as we're getting radiation from Fukushima in California, and even in Texas, we're still getting radiation from there. And there was Turbinol and 3 Mile Island. And also the refining uranium creates a lot of fluorine waste, which we're drinking. Thank you.
Valerie Menard, District 1. I would not support relicensing. I would support phasing out nuclear power. As I mentioned, I support renewable energy sources, and nuclear is non-renewable, so folks don't realize that. And I'm hoping that by 2027, 2028, our use of wind and solar and renewable sources will have ramped up so that this won't be an issue.
Yes, I do agree. My butt cheek is getting a little numb, so I'm going to shift to a different side. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I can't top that. My cheeks are just fine. Probably the best thing I said. I'm sorry, I'm wondering. It's okay. So, my uncle is a nuclear engineer, and he worked on SDNP project. They had a lot of problems with the containment wall. They had air pockets in the wall. It's not a safe plant. Nuclear energy is not dirty in that you can't see dirt, but it does not mean that it's a clean energy source. It is extremely dangerous, so I would definitely support us getting out of it. But we have to make sure that someone else doesn't get in where we get out. We have to shut it down and figure out how do we do that. And that's not just as simple as us getting out. And that goes to some of the other conversations we've had as well.
Nuclear energy is dangerous and it takes a lot of water. We already said we don't have enough water here. So we need to get out of it. I would not relicense, and I'm in favor of mothballing it.
Thank you. We're going to come on over to Leslie.
All right, remember when it was called the South Texas Nuclear Project? And then they rebranded it, right, and dropped the word nuclear. Right. So it needs to go. It needs to be phased out. There's no reason to continue the STP. Thank you.
As stated before, I mean, this is really towards the question of what type of city we want to be. And yes, we need to close it down. And we may not guarantee somebody's going to pick it up. But what we can do is define what we're going to be as a city. I think that's the most important stance for ourselves, for our children in the future, saying that this is the type of city and these are our values. So yes, definitely, we need to stop. Thank you.
This is real close to my heart. Although I came to Austin in 1979, I grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is about 15 miles from 3 Mile Island. I was out of state at the time. I think it was 1978 or 79 when they had their issues there. But I remember talking to my parents on the phone about it, and they were scared to death. We saw what happened in Japan. I don't trust the technology at this point. I would absolutely support phasing it out and shutting it down.
I absolutely agree that we do not need nuclear energy. We need to stop it. I'd like to see it before 2027. I know there's a commitment there, but there's options we need, and we have renewable energy as that resources. And I'm very hopeful that once on city council that we can work to not only retire this and maybe possibly look into retiring it sooner, but that when we phase out of this area, that we become a leader in the United States for alternative energy, for more jobs as well.
You know, definitely need to phase this out. The South Texas nuclear plant has been a mistake from the get-go, and it has just been a continuous problem. As Ora said, certainly there is a huge water requirement that goes along with the operation of that plant, and so it's not only better management, but more responsible use of our generation, but also more responsible use of our water. We've been using nuclear power for decades. We've never come up with a way to deal with the waste. And that liability is just continuing now.
As the market for energy continues to evolve, there is no longer any need for this diversity in our portfolio. Nuclear energy is dangerous, and as Jeb said, the byproduct is something that will outlast us for thousands of years. Its impact is not worth its risk. I understand it has a lot of potential for providing energy, but it always comes in at twice the price and 20 years late. So I'm an advocate for relieving us of our responsibility of this plan for 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could pass this down to Pete. So we're going to go ahead and move on to closing statements. We're going to have 1 minute. Have at it. Pete.
Hello, my name is Pete Salazar. As you know, I was born and raised in Austin, Texas. And y'all have a lot of options in front of you. I can't say I'm not an urban planner, but the city's had urban planners for years, and they gave us this capacity currents. You know, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the rules and regs, but I know people. I spent the last 15 years of my life working with people and seeing the human capital when we fail. And I think that this city council needs that perspective. Because you can look at all the rules and regulations, but when you forget the people, you move yourself away from what is important. Yes, the city is a body of rules and regulations, but we're representing the people, and we should never forget that. When we forget that, we get in trouble. I too have countless times in studies and been working with the council for the past 15 years giving recommendations. It's time to stop giving recommendations and start implementing solutions. Thank you.
I'm Darrell Whittle, running in District 7. I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm a big proponent of representative democracy and pluralism. I want to thank all the groups that are represented here today. I think this is an historic election. This move to 10-1 is just so exciting. Again, as I said in my opening, I want to try to bring a business perspective to the council. I think it's something that's been lacking on the last couple of councils. I also want to encourage everybody to get out and register and vote. Get your friends to register. Obviously, people in this room are interested. You've probably already registered. Early voting starts pretty soon. But get your friends, your family, get everybody to register and vote. Thanks very much. Darrell Whittle.
Melissa Zone, candidate in District 7. And I could say probably everyone in this room loves our city. And most of us have probably championed, filled out petitions, circulated them. We've worked hard and championed for a better environment for us. I could say I'm the only council candidate in District 7 who's actually had environmentally friendly, energy efficient projects implemented. And I'm wanting to now take City Hall's politics out. I'm running as a professional with a proven record, and we're going to make sure things are done. We're going to make sure that our environment is better for now and in the future. And I don't answer to anyone but my residents, my constituents. And that's what you are. And that's who I'm going to be, your voice. And not just champion for our neighborhoods and better environment, but for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming out today. I think the questions and the discussions we've had today have shown the complexity of the issues surrounding Austin Energy, and they're going to be faced with the new council. We also underlined the need for experienced leadership, such as that I offer, and certainly the need for careful consideration and deliberation by the council and the citizens on how we want to address each of these issues, particularly considering that in the face of the rising risk of climate change, as they become apparent to us, so much of what we plan today may be irrelevant tomorrow, and we need to be ready to take on those new challenges and flexible in adjusting to them. My name is Jeff Boyd. I'm running for City Council in District 7, and I hope I have your support. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody who put this forum together today. My name is Jimmy Paver. I'm also running in District 7. And I think one of the reasons I love to engage in this type of atmosphere is because it demonstrates who is serious about policy and who is just serious about politics. You need thoughtful, pragmatic people on this council who understand your issues in a way that is studied, is nuanced, and understands that the implementation all has collateral impacts, and the things that we need to do are not black and white. They are very gray, but at the end of the day, we have to think about it in a way that does the most good for the most people. I am an advocate for renewable energy in a way that is very thoughtful and pure, and I am an intergenerational stakeholder in this community. I grew up right down the street, and I will continue to live and raise my family here. Thank you very much, Jimmy Paver. Thank you.
I'm Leslie Poole. I've lived in Austin since 1980. I raised a daughter here. She was born in 1988, and she went to the Austin schools. My roots in Austin are as deep as the aquifer. I've worked on city issues in a wide range and depth of topics, from law enforcement to telecommunications to transportation to natural resources. I'm one of the strongest environmentalists sitting on this dais here today, with my active support of Save Our Springs initiatives back in 1992. We marched for that, we circulated petitions, we knew what we were after with the soul of the city: save the springs. We can look down there today and see that it continues to be threatened, and you need someone on council who understands those fights, why we fought them, what fights we won and lost, and why we won and lost them. You need someone on council with a deep commitment and involvement and a demonstrated record in these issues on city council. Thank you.
Thank you, District 7 candidates. We're going to move to Valerie in District 1.
Thank you. Valerie Menard, District 1. I'm here because I was inspired by single-member districts. I've always supported single-member districts, but I was inspired by it because the spirit of single-member districts says anybody can run, because we've suddenly made it more affordable for the average citizen to do this. So what happens then is the usual power brokers that have chosen our leaders in the past, hopefully will have a little more work to do. They're working their magic again, but I want to tell you, I don't have a backer, but my campaign is very grassroots. My community service is in the arts. I was an arts commissioner with Leslie, and I was for 6 years. And then I am also currently the president of the Center for Mexican American Cultural Arts. So when you go to the polls, please remember to consider the spirit of single-member districts and the candidates that may not have the most money, but do have the experience, the dedication to bring a voice to Northeast Austin. Thank you.
My name is Michael Cargill, and I am that voice for District 1. We can get the cars moving. Yes, we can stop gentrification on the east side. Yes, and we also can increase the revenue to the Austin Energy by following my plan. I'm a small business owner. I was a network operations manager for a telecommunications company. I also was an instructor at the Armed Forces School of Music, so I can relate to our musicians. I can relate to our technology section, and with my business, the reason why I was in several new media outlets, because my business actually leads the way when it comes to energy, by being the first solar power sign in the state of Texas here in Austin. With that, we can move forward doing the work that we need to do. I can be that voice. I'm here for you. My name is Michael Carter.
I talked earlier about some of my earliest memories sitting at Barton Springs. I would lay back and listen to the wind blow through the leaves. I would imagine the voices of people who were there before us, playing in those waters, living from those waters. And it reminds me of our two most important resources in Austin, our people and our environment. Nowadays, oftentimes, we look at our environment as what is contained within the four walls around us. But we have to get out of that and into Austin. That's what I've done throughout my career. I've served as the chairman of the Urban Transportation Commission, Urban Renewal Board, and President Houston Tilson Young Democrats Coalition, Precinct Chair, Travis County Democratic Party. I have worked for the city by getting out of the four walls and getting out there with the people to work on the issues that matter. I'm Andrew Bucknell. I thank you for this opportunity and ask for your support for City Council District 1.
Thank you, Andrew. My name is Ora Houston, candidate for City Council District 1. The environmental conversation needs to be broader than it has been historically. We need to move it into District 1, 3, 7, 9, places other than the aquifer. We've got farmland that is about to be built over, and there's a relationship between the aquifer and the farmland. It's like the yin and the yang. And pretty soon, at the rate Austin is growing, we will build over and concrete all of our farmland. And nobody's paying attention to that. And so those are the conversations that I am hoping we will be able to broaden and understand that the landfill is still killing our people out over 290. We need to work on cleaning up the landfill and closing that. So these are the kinds of voices that will come to the table when we talk about environmental issues in other parts of the city. And I appreciate your time, and I'm Ora Houston, City Council District 1.
My name is Norman Jacobson. I've been a software engineer for 17 years. I'm very detail-oriented, and I've looked into the fluoridated water issue, and I've discovered that in 1914, Andrew Mellon was one of the wealthiest men in the country, and he had a problem. People were dying from fluorine poisoning from his mills, and he needed a scapegoat. So he came up with the idea of fluoridating the water, because he knew from India that fluoridated water causes dental fluorosis. And ever since then, Andrew Mellon's Alcoa has been giving away billions of dollars in grants for people to support fluoridated water. And according to my calculations, we save a nickel a day by drinking fluoridated water. And is our life worth a nickel a day? And 212 people are dying every year from fluoridated water in the city of Austin only.
All right, let's give a nice big round of applause to our candidates. Thank you for spending time here. We know this is valuable walking time, and thank you all for coming out and spending time. Thanks to Kaiba for passing that mic and getting those questions out to everybody. Feel free to mingle and get to know these candidates. If you support them, go out